Hey guys, tonight we're squeezing into the drafty corners of ancient Roman apartment blocks in Insulae. They called them brick skeletons stacked 5 or 6 floors high, wobbling with bad plumbing and worse neighbors. Picture yourself wedged between a leaky ceiling and a snoring gladiator upstairs, while someone below sings to their goat at midnight. That's the kind of vibe we're drifting into. You'll brush past flickering oil lamps, dodge falling pottery from an upper window, and just try to find some peace and quiet in the noisiest sleep setup since history began recording snore volumes. And you probably won't survive this. Not the snoring though, that's a threat, but the building itself. Insulae were notorious for collapsing without much warning. One bad storm, one careless cookfire, and it was all over but the shouting and probably the looting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. Bonus points if you're already in bed. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull your scratchy blanket tighter around your shoulders and glance at the cracked ceiling above someone's sandal just stomped overhead. Dust sprinkling down like cheap snow. Welcome to your Roman tenement. It smells faintly of cabbage and regret, and you're on the 3rd floor, which is technically a luxury tier if you go by the simple rule that higher means less chance of dying in a fire. The walls are thinner than the loyalty in a senatorial debate. You can hear your neighbor scratching his beard, and you're pretty sure he doesn't even have one. The woman across the hall has already broken 3 clay dishes trying to chase a rat that may or may not be her reincarnated uncle. You don't ask questions, you just listen. That's what you do most nights. Listen, because sleep in an insula isn't something you fall into. It's something you negotiate between stomach growls, cats mating in the stairwell, and that one kid who's convinced he's Jupiter when the moon rises. Most Romans didn't own a separate bedroom. If you were lucky, your rented unit was one room with a curtain you could tie up for privacy or just for the illusion of it. Your bed might be a straw mattress, maybe stuffed with horsehair, or sometimes nothing at all, just an old cloak laid across a pile of hay, which the bugs thoroughly appreciated. You lay down flat, bones creaking like the timber supports above you, and start to drift. That's when the symphony begins. First comes the floorboard creak. That's the neighbor above you, always pacing, always mumbling. Then a distant clatter. Someone dropped a pot downstairs. You wince. Hopefully, not the bean pot. Beans do not go quietly into the night. The snoring begins around this time, too. Deep, nasal, ancient sounding. Not one person, many. You wonder if there's a chorus involved. It echoes through the building like a death rattle for silence itself. You shift positions. The straw pokes your side. You reach for a scratchy wool cloth, tug it tighter, and sigh. The air is thick and wet. Rome in summer doesn't so much sleep as steam. You think about the cool marble of a senator's villa. You think about shade trees and iced wine. You think about punching your ceiling neighbor. Historians still argue whether insulae were truly as chaotic as Roman satirists describe, or if the whole collapsing fire trap trope was exaggerated by elite writers who never had to share a wall with an aspiring poet and his pet goose. But archaeological remains suggest real-life tenement living wasn't far off from the sarcastic scrolls. Overcrowded, underbuilt, and full of strange smells. Here's a fun or terrifying fact. Some upper floors didn't have latrines, so residents used chamber pots and emptied them through the windows into the alley. You're lucky your spot faces the back courtyard. Slightly less airborne danger. Fringe theories even suggest some families train their children to listen for a certain splash before retrieving accidentally dropped belongings from the street. Economical, also very damp. Tonight, like most nights, you don't sleep at first. You listen, you imagine. You drift sideways, not downward into memories of the market, the tangle of arms at the communal bread oven, the sound of the fishmonger hawking still squirming eels at sunset. You remember your feet aching from standing in line for olive oil, only to realize your coin pouch was missing, or never full to begin with. Sleep, when it finally comes, doesn't so much settle in as sneak up behind you. One moment you're counting Snort 7 upstairs, 5 downstairs, one suspiciously rhythmical wheeze next door, and the next, your breathing matches the collective grunt of the building. It's oddly comforting. In a shared human misery sort of way, you know that on every floor, behind every warped wooden door, someone else is also struggling with their pillow, adjusting their aching back, wondering whether the creaking timber means termites or doom. And then, in that half-sleep, you imagine someone tiptoeing through the corridor? A ghost? A thief? The answer is always yes, in Rome. Still, you close your eyes, because even in a city that never truly sleeps, you've carved out a sliver of peace, and if the rats don't get you, the fire probably will. The first thing you hear is the slosh, not a thunderclap, not the crow of a rooster, just the soft, unmistakable sound of someone emptying a chamber pot, a kind of watery swoosh, followed by a thud, then a muttered curse in Old Latin. It's around midnight. Welcome to the Roman chamber pot parade. An unglamorous midnight ritual you never asked to be a part of. You shift in your spot, blinking in the oily half-dark, and try to pretend that smell didn't just seep under your door, but it did. It always does. You swear there's a breeze that only flows when it's carrying something disgusting. Your neighbors above don't have a latrine, neither do the ones 2 floors up, and public latrines, locked tight after dusk. So, once again, everyone leans out their windows, trying their best not to dump waste on someone's laundry line or head. Tonight, it's Lucius. You can tell by the grunt he makes before every toss, like a gladiator winding up for a kill shot. Then comes the splash, then the argument. You did it again. Lucius, it's my property. Your urine is in my stew pot. You don't even flinch anymore. It's routine. The insulae might be falling apart, but the residents run like clockwork. Sleep is just the hours you float between bodily functions and floorboard complaints. Historians still argue whether chamber pots were dumped from upper floors with impunity, or whether strict laws enforced punishments for soiling the street. What we know, the streets were disgusting, and the average Roman owned fewer pots than they had personal grudges. You sit up for a moment and wrap a cloth around your nose. The air is damp and musky. Somewhere in the alley, a dog starts barking at something it probably can't see. Or maybe it can. Rome was full of things you'd rather not see after midnight. There's a knock at the door across the hall, 2 quick taps, and a scrape. The code for someone asking to borrow oil, or wine, or maybe a dry blanket. The door opens. You hear quiet conversation, followed by the soft shuffle of sandals, and then, yep, a toddler crying. Probably stepped on a pottery shard again. 3rd time this week. You sigh and lean back against the wall. The rhythm of Roman life is held together by improvisation and pee buckets. Some neighbors have developed systems, ropes with little bells, warning shouts. One woman invented what's essentially a wooden funnel to aim waste directly into a shared gutter. You remember applauding her once. She curtsied. Her name might be Flavia, or possibly Saint Flavia of the Funnel. Fringe theories suggest that some apartments even employed kids to run night errands for a small fee. Urine boys, they were sometimes called in satire scrolls. Their job, empty the pot, fetch clean water, deliver midnight figs, or make sure no one was stealing from your room while you were distracted. You lie back down and try to focus on your breathing, slow and shallow. But now comes the parade. It starts with one pot, then another, then another. The building turns into an orchestra of ceramic clinks, squeaky hinges, and carefully aimed sighs. One neighbor sings while she dumps hers, loudly, off-key. You think it's a love ballad, though it might be a recipe. And then there's Marcus. Every night he announces his dump like a town crier. Clear the way. Hot contents. It used to be funny. Now it's just expected. The joke around the alley is that if you walk outside barefoot, you'll learn more about your neighbors than Cicero ever wanted to know. That's why no one wears sandals with holes in them here. At least, not twice. You start imagining a quieter city. Maybe Alexandria, maybe Athens. A place where people use drains and pipes, and everyone respects bedtime. But then again, maybe not. Civilization always finds a way to be gross after dark. A mosquito whines past your ear, snapping you back to reality. You swat at it lazily and miss somewhere below. Someone yells about spilled soup. You don't ask what kind. You shift again on your straw mat. Your hip is already numb. The noise is easing now. The pots are quiet. The voices fade. Just the wind. If you could call it that, a lazy movement of warm air past cracked stone. The parade has ended. For now, you let your eyelids drift closed, but your mind lingers on one strange thought. Romans believed certain smells could affect your dreams. If you sniffed myrrh or lavender, the gods might whisper visions into your sleep. But if you fell asleep to the smell of sewage, well, that's between you and Mercury. Still, your body begins to settle. The stench becomes familiar. Your neighbors grow quieter. You think you might be slipping into a dream. But then the toddler steps on another pot shard, and the parade begins again. The creaking starts just after the second pot parade ends. You know the sound by now. It's the long, slow groan of the ceiling beam above your head, warped by time, humidity, and too many years of holding up people who apparently store bricks under their beds. You don't panic. Not anymore. If it falls, it falls. You've made peace with being flattened like a stale loaf of libum. The Romans called these load-bearing timbers trades, and while they were engineered with admirable ambition, time wasn't kind to Roman craftsmanship, especially in rental housing. The higher the floor, the cheaper the rent, and the closer you lived to the gods, or to falling into your neighbor's stew. You hear a soft thud, then a voice low, muttering. Someone above you is talking in their sleep again, or to the ceiling, or both. You're not sure which is more comforting. You curl tighter under your threadbare cloth, breathing in warm dust and something that smells faintly of old onions. You've started naming the ceiling sounds. That crack near the corner, that's Lucinda. The groan in the middle, obviously, old Marcus. The rattle above your foot, probably just your nerves. Honestly, some ancient Romans believed that the gods of the household, the lares, could be angered by poor construction. If your roof leaked or your floor squeaked, it wasn't just shoddy carpentry, it was a sign of spiritual neglect. That's why a lot of Romans muttered tiny prayers before lying down, just in case. You try it tonight. Oh, sacred lar, please don't let the roof crush me. Doesn't hurt. Some went further, placing offerings under the bed, small coins, dried figs, the occasional chicken feather. Fringe practices even included whispering a specific hymn to protect the wood from termites. You're not saying that works. But Lucinda's corner hasn't shifted in weeks since you sang to it after a particularly bad dream. The Romans were obsessed with omens, especially while sleeping. They believed certain dreams could predict famine, floods, or betrayal by your in-laws. Whole books were written, decoding whether dreaming of olives meant wealth or heartbreak. Historians still argue whether these books were used sincerely or mostly to justify that awkward dream involving your mother-in-law and a goat. Tonight, you hope for something gentler. Maybe a dream of wheat, or quiet, or a bath where no one steals your soap. But first, you need to survive the pipes. You hear it glurt, then a burp. Then, what sounds like a sad ghost hiccuping through a tin flute. That's your building's plumbing, or what passes for it. A clay pipeline that runs through the floor above, sagging in places, clinging to life with rusted brackets, and the tears of every tenant it has failed. It moans like a cow in mourning. You groan back. Plumbing in Roman tenements was primitive at best. If you lived on a lower floor, you might get a cold splash of reused bathwater once a day. If you lived on an upper floor, congratulations, you got nothing. Maybe the illusion of water, maybe a damp wall if your neighbor spilled wine while trying to bless their idol. Still, there were tricks. Some tenants developed rituals. Knock the pipe twice before lying down. Hang garlic near the wall to distract the water spirits. Or rub the joints with goose fat. You tried that one? It did nothing for the noise, but made the local cats very affectionate. Tonight, the plumbing has opinions. It groans. It rattles. You wonder what it wants. Freedom. Retirement. To be left alone. Like you breathe slowly. In, out, you count the cracks in the ceiling 12s. One for every god you've probably offended today. Then you hear it, a soft chant, a whisper, really, drifting through the floorboards from the apartment below. Someone is praying, not in Latin, in Greek. You recognize fragments, something about dreams, the moon, the sea, a night prayer, maybe, or a curse. You lie still, listening. The walls in insulae were made of rubble-filled concrete, opus caementicium, sometimes faced with brick, sometimes just left raw. And yet somehow, sound moved through them like wind through reeds. You could hear someone sneeze 3 floors up and someone snore 4 doors over. Tonight, you hear a lullaby, soft, repetitive, Probably a mother rocking her baby, or herself. You stare up at the ceiling. The beam creaks again, Lucinda, restless. You close your eyes and imagine the gods creeping through the rafters, checking on their mortals, making notes. That one didn't scrub the threshold. That one forgot the salt offering. That one sleeping with one sock on bold choice. Eventually, you doze. Your dreams are strange. You're walking through a market made entirely of clay pots. Every stall sells a different shape. Some pots whisper when you touch them. Some giggle. You reach for one, and it breaks. Inside, a mouse, wearing a toga. He points at you and says, "Fix your ceiling." You wake up laughing. Lucinda creaks again. You think she laughed too. You're not even fully awake yet, but you know it's coming. The rumble starts in the distance, low, grumbly, nasal. Then it builds. It climbs through the floorboards like a war drum played with damp socks. And then it arrives. A guttural, reverberating snore that seems to echo off every cracked wall in your room. The man 2 floors down has started again. There's nothing regular about it. It's not rhythmic, not polite. It's a series of seismic events, a snore-sneeze-snort combo that makes you question both science and the nature of human throats. You sit up slightly and blink into the dark, trying to remember if this is the same guy who once claimed he'd been cursed by a Lemurian ghost with lung envy. You wouldn't rule it out. Ancient Romans had no shortage of superstitions about snoring. Some believed it was caused by wind trapped between the soul and the stomach. Others blamed it on bad posture, demonic possession, or eating too much goat cheese before bed. You'd believe any of those tonight? Maybe all 3. Historians still argue whether the use of herbal snore sachets in Roman bedrooms was for health or ritual purposes. These were little bundles of dried lavender, thyme, or even crushed bay leaf, tied in linen and placed near the pillow. Supposedly, they could chase away bad dreams and bad breath, which might explain why your snoring neighbor smells faintly of parsley whenever he visits the stairs. You tried one once? It just made you hungry. Some households took more creative approaches. One particularly strange scroll mentions placing owl bones under your pillow to trap the soul's noise before it could escape through the nose. Fringe practitioners even tried tying a wax amulet around their neck, engraved with the phrase "Silentium in nocte, silence in the night," which sounds lovely, until you learn that some of these charms were soaked in goose blood for activation. You consider starting your own ritual. Maybe a pillow over the head, maybe a strongly worded note, maybe moving to Pompeii and taking your chances with the volcano. The snore reaches a crescendo. It almost harmonizes with the pipe moans in the creaky ceiling. You wonder if this is what Roman lullabies sounded like, an unholy mix of structural fatigue and throat thunder. You glance around your room. There's your jar of dried figs, a cracked bowl, your sandal leaning drunkenly against the wall. It's not much, but it's home. You'd miss it if you moved. Probably. The floor creaks, someone's up. You recognize the stealthy tread of your neighbor, Julia the widow who lives across the hall. She's taken to walking the halls at night, checking on people, not because she cares, necessarily, but because she likes to know things. Once she found a lizard in someone's laundry and insisted it was an omen from Mercury. She also claimed the lizard whispered stock tips. You nod to yourself. Julia's probably heading toward the snorer. She's tried everything. Peppermint oil, sharp whispers, broom taps through the wall. Last week she tried singing a lullaby backwards through the vent. That just made him snore louder. Somehow, Romans didn't have sleep clinics, but they had apothecaries. If you were desperate enough, you could buy sleep potion somniculum. They were called blends of poppy, vinegar, and crushed dates. They didn't always work, and they definitely gave you strange dreams. But for some, that was the point. You lie back down and think about that, how humans, even 2,000 years ago, would rather risk drugged hallucinations than endure a snore that shakes the beeswax off the walls. The air thickens, not with heat, but tension. You can feel the building holding its breath, and then silence. You blink. Did he die? No. A gentle rustle, a cough, a turn. Maybe he just rolled over. You breathe, deeply, gratefully, but you can't help it. You laugh, quietly, just a huff through your nose. Because it's absurd, isn't it? The way you've memorized every vocal pattern of the man 2 floors below, as if it's part of your nightly routine. The way Roman life, even at its most private, was always shared. Shared noise, shared smells, shared rituals. There were no secrets in an insula. You could fake being quiet, but the walls always told the truth. You once heard a couple break up in real time, 4 floors away. You still remember the phrase, "Take your vinegar and go to your mother's atrium." Harsh. You start to drift again. Just before sleep, you imagine the snore like a wild animal, prowling the tenement, searching for its next victim. A heavy-breathing spirit sent by Bacchus himself, upset that no one invited him to dinner. Maybe tomorrow, you'll leave a gift on the landing, a sprig of thyme, a clay earplug, a tiny scroll that reads, "Please, for the love of Saturn, breathe quieter." But for now, it's quiet. Too quiet. No, just quiet enough. You're almost asleep when the wall whispers. Not literally. Though you wouldn't be shocked at this point, but close. It's that strange, muffled hum of voices bleeding through crumbling plaster. Someone is talking. No, gossiping. A full conversation. Hushed but intense. Leaking through the wall like wine from a cracked amphora. You press your ear closer. Not because you want to eavesdrop, but because you're already invested. It's the woman next door. You recognize her laugh. Dry, sharp, like someone who's seen too many market brawls and not enough sunshine. Told her he was the father, but I know that birthmark. I've seen it at the baths. You blink, and just like that, you're wide awake, courtesy of the unofficial news network of ancient Rome, Insula Gossip. It's not like you can avoid it. Roman tenements were built with walls thinner than a senator's moral compass. There was no such thing as privacy, only volume control. If someone had a loud opinion, you heard it. If someone stubbed their toe and swore at Apollo, you heard that too. And if someone moaned in their sleep after a questionable lentil stew, you definitely heard that. Tonight, your neighbors are in full narrative mode. Apparently, there's a scandal involving a fish vendor, a borrowed tunic, and an accident with a goose cart. You're not entirely sure who's guilty, but you know who's furious, and that's enough. Historians still argue whether this constant sharing of sound contributed to Rome's famously fast rumor cycles. Some say it made the city socially connected. Others say it just gave people insomnia and trust issues. Probably both. You remember a fringe story once told by a traveling actor who claimed he overheard an entire murder confession through an insula wall and then turned it into a comedy play the next week. It was a hit. Supposedly, the murderer even attended twice. You try to turn away from the sound, pressing your cheek to the slightly cooler patch of wall behind you. No use. The whispering continues, more animated now, and that's when she said, the bread wasn't even hers. Can you imagine? You can. Unfortunately, you consider thumping the wall, not out of anger, just etiquette. A soft thud to say, hey, I'm trying to dream about marble baths and figs dipped in honey, not who flirted with whose cousin's barber. But you don't? Because secretly, you kind of love it. This is Roman reality TV, 1st century edition. No filters, no scripts, just unfiltered opinions, unshaved armpits, and real emotional stakes. And everyone's mic is always hot. The gossip tapers off eventually, replaced by a new sound, writing. Scratch, scratch-o. You smile. That's the scribe who lives downstairs. He works late, always scratching with his stylus on his wax tablet. You've never seen him, but you imagine him with inky fingers and a slightly hunched back. Maybe he's recording all of this. Maybe he's the reason future historians know anything at all about how strange Roman apartment life truly was. You close your eyes again, letting the voices drift into your imagination. You picture the neighbors like characters in a stage play dramatic, over-enunciated, lit by torchlight and petty vengeance. The woman with the scandalous tunic, the man who sells fermented olives and insists they're medicinal, the toddler who screams Saturn every time he drops his spoon, and you, the silent observer, tucked into the backdrop, a witness to the city's endless performance. In truth, Romans were always performing. In court, in temples, in forums, and yes, even in their bedrooms. Reputation was currency, and gossip, well, that was the bank. You once heard of a woman who paid her rent by trading rumors. She didn't cook, didn't clean, she just listened, then whispered the right things to the right people. She lived rent-free for 5 years, until someone figured out she'd been making most of it up. Legend says she was given a gold coin for creativity and politely asked to leave. The voices next door fade into yawns. The city exhales. A breeze slinks in through your cracked window, brushing the curtain like a lazy cat. You're grateful for the draft. Even if it smells faintly of sheep dung and baked turnips, it's something. You rest your head again, and then just as your body begins to sink, you hear it. A different voice, one you haven't heard before. Deep, slow, foreign accent, saying something about a shipment and a debt, and no witnesses. You freeze. Is it real? You sit up, heart thudding, a pause. Then laughter. Someone clinks 2 cups together and says, "I told you that would scare him." You exhale sharply. Very funny. Lucius. You make a mental note to retaliate by pretending your door's haunted tomorrow morning. It's strange. This feeling, half frustrated, half content. This life you didn't ask for, crowded, noisy, and unpredictable, has become a kind of lullaby. One where every whisper, every footstep, every poorly timed joke reminds you that you're not alone. And somehow, that helps. You close your eyes one more time. And this time, the walls stay quiet. You're finally floating, deep in that strange, syrupy, almost sleep, where time bends and thoughts feel like smoke. That's when the thump happens, not loud, just deliberate, followed by another, then another. The rhythm is unmistakable, broom handle to ceiling, a soft, weary thud, spaced like a heartbeat. You know the signal. Someone's had enough. The soft vigilantes of sleep are on patrol again. You grin in the dark. This is a classic move. Not violent, not destructive, just enough to say, "Hey, we hear you," and your donkey impression, not appreciated. It's probably Julia. She's the closest thing this floor has to a peacekeeper. Every tenement had a person who, despite the odds, took it upon themselves to enforce the sacred, unofficial rule of Roman city life. People are trying to sleep. Stop living so loudly. Ancient Rome didn't have building managers or noise ordinances. What it did have was community justice, delivered with the tools at hand. Broomsticks, wooden ladles, occasionally a well-aimed shoe. You remember the famous wet sandal incident from a few weeks ago? A neighbor 2 doors down had taken to playing the flute after sundown. Not beautifully, not serenely, just badly. One night, someone hurled a soaked sandal through his window. Perfect arc. Direct hit. The flute was never seen again. The man now claps quietly to himself before bed. Historians still argue whether these kinds of civilian enforcement tactics were common across Rome, or if they were just symptoms of overcrowded districts like Subura, where nerves were thin and tempers thinner. Fringe letters from provincial cities suggest that rural Romans dealt with late-night noise by sending goats into offenders' gardens. Subtle, no, effective. Undeniably, the thumping continues. A few more polite knocks, followed by silence. It worked. For now, you feel a strange, shared pride. Like you're part of a secret night watch society that runs not on badges, but on passive aggression and strategic noise. You close your eyes again, letting your body melt into the straw beneath you. Then a different noise, quieter, sneaky, creak, creak, tiptoe. Someone's up to something. You lift your head just enough to hear better. Bare feet on stone. Someone creeping past your door. Careful not to wake the wrong person. It's Marcus. Probably. He always gets restless after his dreams. Claims a spirit visits him nightly to complain about the price of figs. He walks the halls muttering, sometimes leaving offerings at each door. Once, it was coins. Another time, it was a dead mouse with a ribbon tied around its tail. Interpret as you will. Still, better him than the guy who sings in his sleep. You hear the soft jingle of bronze keys, then a door opening, creaking, closing. The building settles again. The thing is, everyone knows what everyone else is doing, even when they pretend not to. The woman who makes too much noise during the afternoon nap hour, everyone knows. The man who steals wood chips from the bathhouse pile, known. The boy who swears his chicken speaks Latin, absolutely. Hilariously known. You all live too close not to know, and at night, this closeness becomes something strange, a kind of choreography. One person stirs, another waits, one snores, another thumps, one sings, and someone hums along out of habit or madness. It's chaos, yes, but orchestrated chaos. You remember a story may be true, maybe not about a building where the residents coordinated their movements through wall taps, not just complaints, whole schedules. One tap, I'm heading to the latrine. 2 taps. Boil water now. 3 taps. He's coming home early. Hide the amphora. You're not quite there yet, but give it time. The building creaks. Not a complaint this time, more like a sigh. The pipes settle. The donkey upstairs finally sleeps, and somewhere, the broom handle rests in a corner, ready for the next mission. You shift in your bed and stare up at the familiar ceiling beam. Lucinda, still there, still creaky, but holding strong. It occurs to you, suddenly, how deeply you've memorized this building. Every sound, every voice, every pattern. You know the walls like a map. You've grown roots into this brick and plaster maze, and for all its noise, all its weirdness, all its late-night performances, you kind of love it here. You hear the difference before you see it. The silence is too clean, like someone scrubbed the night with olive oil, and expectations. The usual chorus of foot shuffles, dream grunts, and pipe burps is absent. Even Lucinda the ceiling beam is behaving, which means only one thing. Someone rich is sleeping nearby. You sit up slowly, nose twitching. There it is, lavender, real lavender, not the dried kind mixed with alley dust and optimism. Imported lavender, probably massaged into pillows by a servant with soft hands and no sarcasm. You stand and peek out your curtain. Just for a second, across the courtyard, one window glows, not flickering oil like the rest, but steady candlelight clean. Expensive beeswax. You squint and see it. Marble wall, crisp linen drapes, a shadow moving with a practiced grace. No screaming toddlers, no snore beasts, no exploding pots. A doma sleeper, the rarest kind in Rome's apartment district. You knew one had moved in temporarily. Some cousin of a minor senator, slumming it while their villa was repaired after a triclinium flood. The word had traveled fast. The alley kids had stopped throwing pebbles for a full hour out of respect. That's how you knew it was serious. Romans with money slept differently, not just quieter, better. They had private bedrooms, feather-stuffed mattresses, sheets woven from Egyptian linen, pillows that didn't smell like despair, ceiling beams that didn't name themselves. Even their dreams were probably fancier gilded chariot races and philosophical pillow talk with Mercury himself. Historians still argue whether upper-class Romans actually had better sleep quality, or if it was just a side effect of not hearing 8 other people fight about turnips through the wall. But surviving villa remains suggest real investment in comfort, recessed alcoves, insulation techniques, and ceiling vents that actually worked. Imagine. Fringe scholars even believe wealthy Romans paid professional dream correctors. Yes, that was a thing people trained to whisper suggestions before sleep, to steer your mind toward noble themes. Love, conquest, clean sandals. You wouldn't know. You lie back down on your glorified straw burrito and imagine what it would feel like to fall asleep without the fear of a rat mistaking your toe for a fig. Over in the glowing window, the shadow moves again. Maybe they're fluffing their second pillow, or adjusting their imported sleep tunic, or being read to by a servant with excellent diction. You sigh, but here's the thing. You have slept in a domus once. Briefly, during a delivery job gone sideways, you remember the silence, the softness, the eerie lack of neighborly muttering. You couldn't sleep. It was too still. No creaks, no gossip, no. Marcus pacing the hallway, claiming the stars had rearranged themselves just for him. It felt less like a home, more like a tomb with better snacks. You roll over and look at your own ceiling. Lucinda creaks. There it is. That's better. You smile. Still, you wonder, what do the wealthy dream about? Probably not the same things you do. You dream about bread. Always bread. Sometimes you're baking it. Sometimes you're losing it. Once, you had a dream where a loaf stood up and accused you of underproofing. It was traumatic. You once asked your neighbor what she dreamed about. She said, stairs, just endless stairs, covered in tomato skins. You didn't ask again. The point is, dreams in this part of Rome tend to reflect your waking life. Chaotic, noisy, slightly fermented. But over there, in that glowing window, maybe their dreams are clean and soft and smell like lavender. Maybe they never wake up to pipe ghosts or snoring banshees. Maybe they don't need vigilante broom justice. You feel a strange combination of envy and affection. Yes, it must be nice, but it also must be lonely. There's something comforting about the noise, about knowing someone is always 2 inches away through a paper-thin wall, even if they're singing to their fish, even if they accidentally kicked your door during a midnight sleepwalk, even if their chamber pot technique needs improvement. It's alive. This place, messy, yes, but real. You turn toward your wall and close your eyes. Let the Domus people dream their marble dreams. You'll take your squeaky ceiling, your whispering gossip, your soft, broken city full of imperfect sleepers. Because here, you never sleep alone. The Fire Watch never sleeps. You hear them before you see them. Heavy footsteps on worn wooden stairs, a rustle of wool cloaks brushing the crumbling plaster, the quiet jingle of a utility keyring that opens mostly nothing useful. One of them coughs. Another mutters about oil rations. You freeze under your blanket, not from fear, but recognition. The Vigiles Nocturni, the night watchman, part fire brigade, part neighborhood patrol, part professional insomniac. Their job, prevent the entire building, maybe the entire street from burning down, while everyone else dreams about salted cheese or minor deities with sandal fetishes. And it is a very real risk. Rome, for all its grandeur, was basically a fire trap wrapped in myth. Cramped insulae built too close together, stacked with flammable goods and tenants who believed let's heat oil and go to sleep was a good idea. Fires started with oil lamps, rogue coals, or unlucky prayers and once lit. They spread faster than scandal in the forum. The vigils were your only line of defense. You never envied them. Tonight, 2 of them pass your door. They carry pails, torches, and something that looks like a very tired ferret. You're not sure if it's for companionship or pest control. Maybe both. One nods in your direction through the half-open curtain. You nod back. There's a quiet respect between sleepers and watchers. They don't ask questions. You don't ask if they're awake because they want to be or because they have to be. Historians still debate whether these night patrols were consistent citywide or mostly symbolic gestures to calm public nerves. Some documents suggest most vigiles were hired locals with minimal training and strong opinions about wet towels. Others argue they were Rome's unsung heroes, saving lives with nothing but fast feet and a willingness to yell fire at strangers in the dark. Fringe letters from the provinces mention trained parrots used to squawk at the first sign of smoke. Rome never adopted that. Tragically, you shift under your blanket, not because you're cold, but because you suddenly remember how easily the neighbor 3 doors down once lit his tunic on fire while trying to warm olives. It popped like a curse, and to this day, he insists the olives were possessed. You weren't there, but you saw the scorch marks, and the pigeons have never returned to that windowsill. Tonight, though, no fire, no shouting, just the slow patrol of watchmen with lanterns flickering orange on soot-streaked walls. They pause on each landing, sniff, listen, tap the floorboards. One mutters about mold. The other shushes him and points to a drip in the ceiling. Routine. Your building has burned before. You know this. Everyone does. The blackened corner near the stairwell whispers reminders. No one talks about it anymore. But every tenant has an escape plan. Yours involves a knotted bedsheet and an unfortunately placed cabbage cart. You're not proud, just prepared. The vigils move on. Their torchlight fades down the hall. The silence left behind feels heavier, but not unwelcome. Like the building is holding its breath and then slowly releasing. You lie back down and stare up at Lucinda, your old friend, the ceiling beam. She's quiet tonight, steady. You reach out and knock on her once lightly, not a warning, a thank you. Outside, you hear the faint clang of metal, the fire bell being checked, just in case. It rarely rings, but when it does, people don't grab shoes. They grab memories. There's something comforting about the vigiles. Yes, they're grumpy. And yes, one of them tried to sell you fermented turnips once. But they're constant, familiar, like the hum of the pipes or the crackle of the wind through the alley shrine. They remind you that Rome doesn't sleep easily, that this city, this ancient beast of brick and noise, needs people watching its back while others dream. You start to drift again. This time, your dream is slower, calmer. You're walking through an empty market at night. No one's shouting. The fruit doesn't rot. There's a flame in every stall, but none of them burn. You pass the vigiles as they nod, just once, and keep walking. You wave. They don't stop you. And you realize, even in dreams, the firewatch never sleeps. This time, you know you're dreaming. It starts with the smell of warm bread fresh. Perfect. Dusted with honeyed ash and no one's yelling. That alone tells you this isn't real. You're standing barefoot in a bakery. Not your bakery, but one built from memory and nonsense. The kind of dream space where logic slips out the window and lands in someone else's chamber pot. The floor is tiled with old coins. The walls are rising dough. And the baker, a large man with a rat perched on each shoulder, both wearing tiny togas. One of them waves. You don't question it. This is how dreams go in Rome. You reach for a loaf, and it squeaks. You blink. The bread has a face. It's your landlord. Rent is late, he says, before crumbling into sesame seeds. Classic. Ancient Romans took their dreams seriously, not just as night thoughts, but as cosmic messages, dispatches from gods, ghosts, and the deeply digestive. Dream interpretation was an industry. There were dream books, dream priests, even dream tax collectors, okay? That last one might have been satire, but with Rome, who knows? Historians still argue whether Roman dream guides were spiritual tools or just a way to feel in control while sleeping next to creaky ceilings and passive-aggressive beetles. But one thing's clear. People remembered their dreams and they shared them, loudly, over breakfast. Fringe theory of the night. Some believed dreams could be infectious, that if your neighbor dreamed of a flood and you slept within 10 feet of them, you might dream of drowning too. Dream contagion. Roman edition. Tonight, your dream shifts again. You're suddenly back in your own room, but it's been rearranged. Your sandals are floating. Your ceiling beam is polished and glowing. There's a chorus of fish reading poetry in the corner. You nod at them politely. One bows. How refined. A knock at the door. You open it and there's Jupiter. Or maybe it's Marcus wearing a colander on his head. Hard to tell. He says, "You've been chosen for the lentil games." Then everything turns into stairs. Just stairs, covered in tomato skins. You remember that dream? You're spiraling now down, not up, but it's soft, warm, like being wrapped in a borrowed tunic that doesn't quite fit but smells like safety. You sink into a final scene, a marketplace at dawn, deserted, peaceful, stalls neatly packed. The cobblestones sweep themselves. A cat naps beside a forgotten fig. You lie down on a cart full of cushions and stare up at the sky. And the sky, somehow, is Lucinda the ceiling beam from your room, now floating above as a cloud, creaking gently in the breeze. You smile. Even your dreams remember the tenement. You stir, half awake now, and the smells begin again. Not dream bread, real bread. Almost burnt. Someone stoking a fire 2 floors below. Probably that guy with the dramatic elbows and the illegal pet owl. You inhale, and with it, the dream lingers half forgotten but sticky, like cheap resin on a borrowed scroll. You wonder how many other people in this building are dreaming right now. Probably all of them. Some of bread, some of rats, some of glory. Romans believed dreams could predict the future, but they also believed dreams could heal the body or expose its secrets. If you dreamed of teeth falling out, bad omen. Dreamed of flying, divine favor. Dreamed of your uncle stealing your sandals again. Time to write him a strongly worded scroll. You lie back, still caught between dream and waking. You wonder what kind of dream you've just had. The kind that says, "You're safe." The kind that says, "Don't eat late." Or maybe the kind that whispers, "You belong here." Noise and all. And as your eyes flutter shut again, you silently thank the gods of plaster, bread, and absurdity. Because in a city of chaos and crickets, you've somehow found peace. Even if your landlord is made of sesame, you're still half dreaming when the sharp clatter jars you back. Not an earthquake, not a rat rebellion. Worse, a merchant's cart, right beneath your window, unloading at an ungodly hour, amphora after amphora, thumping down onto the stone like war drums. You groan into your blanket. Why must all deliveries in Rome happen before the sun even thinks about yawning? The cart owner yells something incomprehensible, half Latin, half goat, and fully awake. A woman curses him from an upper window, hurling what you hope was a fig. It misses. He yells back something about municipal contracts and sunrise discounts. You roll over. Welcome to the night market, the unofficial marketplace of shadows, side deals, and suspiciously discounted olives. Rome never truly sleeps. It just changes shifts. Vendors set up shop by torchlight. Thieves blend in with customers. Informants whisper behind barrels. And somewhere, someone's definitely selling something that fell off a senator's cart 3 nights ago, all under the banner of economy, hustle, and very strong wine. You hear another sound, soft footsteps, too light for sandals, bare feet, quick, nervous, and then a gasp. A thud, something or someone hits the alley wall. You sit up. That wasn't normal. You crawl toward the window, peeking between slats. The merchant's still shouting about garum prices, but his voice fades as your eyes adjust. There, 2 shadows, one upright, one on the ground. A third disappears around the corner. No screams, no more movement. You hold your breath. Historians still argue whether crimes in Rome's night hours were rampant or just dramatized by satirists and gossip scrolls. Records suggest that Subura, the district you unfortunately live in, had its share of unsolved accidents. Alley falls, mysterious bruises, broken amphorae with no explanation. You know the drill. Fringe theories say some tenement neighborhoods developed their own silent codes. Knock on a door in a certain rhythm, and someone would hide you, or heal you, or pretend they never saw you. Community survival. Born of too many nights like this. You hear it now. A door opening. Quick shuffle of feet. Then silence. The market resumes, as if nothing happened. No questions, no witnesses. Rome doesn't pause. It swallows. You sit back, eyes wide, body tense. You won't sleep yet. You can't. Not while your mind plays out every possibility. Was it a thief? A lover's quarrel? A debt collector with poor timing? Or just Rome being Rome? The merchant whistles. Someone tips over a wine jar. 2 cats hiss near a fish crate. And it all continues. You sigh. This city runs on noise, and secrets, and people pretending they didn't hear what they clearly heard. Eventually, your breathing slows. You lie back down. The cool of the floor presses against your arm. Familiar. Grounding. You wonder if the Domus dwellers across the street ever worry about things like this. Probably not. Their alleys are guarded. Their wine is taxed properly. Their enemies don't hide in fruit carts. But then again, their dreams are probably boring. You drift again. This time, no talking bread. No rat politicians. Just shadows that move too fast and voices that whisper too low. You dream you're walking through the alley, holding a torch made of wet figs, trying to light the path. No one helps, but no one stops you either. That's the Roman way. By the time you stir again, the alley is quiet. The merchant's gone. So is the shadow. The world resets, as if nothing ever happened. And maybe nothing did. Or maybe it's just one more thing the walls won't tell. The itching wakes you first. Not the good kind of dreamy scratching, but the kind that makes you question every life decision that's led you to sleep on a straw mattress shared with invisible, bloodthirsty tenants. You groan and swat at your leg, already too late. The invaders are quick, methodical, vicious. Yes, the bedbugs are back. You sit up and scratch furiously, muttering curses that would make a Vestal blush. Your neighbors are stirring too. Someone else slaps their thigh, then their elbow. Then comes the unmistakable sound of a clay pot being launched at a wall. Probably Julia. Bedbug rage is a unifying force in this building. In ancient Rome, scimitas weren't just considered pests. They were believed by some to be omens, tiny messengers of the gods. Or worse, disgruntled spirits returned in insect form to punish the living for minor past offenses like cutting the bakery line or lying about bath tokens. You once heard an old woman mutter, "I swatted my dead husband again last night. He still sleeps in my pillow." You believed her. She had the scratch marks to prove it. Historians still argue whether Romans truly believed bedbugs were supernatural, or whether that was just what people told themselves to feel better about sharing a mattress with aggressive thumb-sized vampires. Either way, remedies abounded. Charcoal powder under the bed, garlic paste smeared across wooden frames, a scroll pinned to the door with the phrase, "May Mars smite you," tiny beast written in bad Latin. You've tried most of them, except the garlic paste. The rats loved it too much. There's one fringe belief you haven't tested yet, inviting the bedbugs to feast on a sacrificial strip of cloth soaked in goat's milk and tears. You don't have goat's milk or the tears, but tonight might be the night you try. You crawl to the far end of your mat and pull out the emergency vinegar jar's standard Roman multi-use item. Good for cooking, cleaning, and supposedly deterring anything with legs and an attitude. You dab a bit around the edges of your blanket. The room immediately smells like a tavern brawl. You lie back down. Scratch. Nope, not good enough. You whisper to Lucinda the ceiling beam. If you let this room stay itch-free for the rest of the night, I'll leave 3 raisins at your base. The Roman version of negotiating with higher powers. You're not the only one suffering. You can hear the shifting of straw mats above and below. The entire building is dancing its nightly jig of discomfort. The Great Scratch-a-thon has begun, and somewhere, someone shouts, "By Juno's armpit, I will burn this mattress." Solidarity. It's strange how you have grown used to this chaos. The bugs, the creaks, the whispers through the wall. You once lived in a quiet house in the countryside. It nearly drove you mad. No snoring, no fights, just birds and sheep and the unbearable silence of well-rested people. Here, you feel alive, even while scratching, even while swatting, even while whispering curses into the night like some sleep-deprived poet of pestilence. Your eyelids begin to droop again. The vinegar stings a little, but it's familiar now like the stink of victory. You shift onto your side, hugging your knees, curling into the only non-bitten corner of your mat. A final scratch, a final sigh, then stillness. You dream of insects in togas, marching, holding tiny scrolls, demanding better living conditions. One of them looks exactly like your landlord. You wake briefly just to frown. You whisper into the dark, "I swear if one of you bites my ankle again, I'll drown this room in fish sauce." But they don't. For now, the peace returns. Until tomorrow. It starts like a soft sob in the wall. Then, as if someone turned the amphora handle of chaos just one notch, the whole system erupts. Glurp, glug, shriek, your plumbing has come alive. You groan. The Roman pipework, if you can call it that, runs through your building like angry veins. Thin clay tubes, hammered bronze joints, and joints sealed with hope and beeswax, installed when Julius Caesar still had hair. Probably. And now it moans, loudly, at 3 a.m. every night, without fail. You know the tone. This isn't just any pipe tantrum. This is the moan. The one that begins in the neighbor's wall and travels down the corridor, rattling pottery and waking toddlers. You swear it's sentient. Tonight, it's doing its full show. Historians still debate whether ancient Roman plumbing, especially in insulae, was actually functional or more symbolic. Wealthy domus houses had access to aqueduct-fed water. You have pipe ghosts and a leaky spout that screams every time someone flushes 3 floors up. Fringe scholars claim that residents developed rituals to appease the piping. Little charms left by drains. Clay tokens with Neptune's trident etched in crooked lines. Some sang lullabies to faucets. Others covered them with damp cloths soaked in wine. You once tried humming to yours. It gurgled louder. So tonight, you go to Plan B. You rise from your mat, tiptoe across the cold stone floor, and open your supply box, a chipped cup, 2 figs, and a piece of wax cloth with something that might have once been soap. You stuff the wax into the base of the pipe, gently, lovingly, like tucking in a cranky toddler made of ceramic and nightmares. It works for 3 seconds. Then, whoosh, water spurts out like the gods sneezed. You jump back, wet now, and suddenly wide awake. From upstairs, someone shouts, "Don't blame me. I said don't flush during Venus hours." You blink. Venus hours. Right? That's superstition. Some Romans believed water spirits, especially those connected to Venus, were active between midnight and dawn, and that using water during these hours could offend them, especially if you'd recently eaten garlic, which you had with pride. You sigh and press a dry cloth to your dripping tunic. The pipe moans again, softer now, maybe sulking. You whisper something polite to it, something olive oil scented and half sincere. It quiets. Finally, you slink back to your mat, damp and defeated, but somehow satisfied. In this building, everybody has pipe stories. Marcus swears he once heard his dead uncle's voice in the drain. Julia claims her pipe laughs whenever she lies. You once saw a beetle emerge from the faucet wearing a crumb crown. This place is alive. Groaning, leaking, and filled with bad acoustics but alive. You close your eyes, fingers still wrinkled from their unplanned encounter with Neptune's mischief. Then comes the second act, the charmers. Someone down the hall has started reciting a rhyme. A charm. You know it well. Half spell, half lullaby. Supposedly invented to keep household spirits, especially angry water ones, from waking the kids. Drip, drip, go away. Neptune's night is not today. Moan no more. The pipe's asleep. Seal the leak, and silence keep. It's nonsense, but it's catchy. You hum along, and somewhere behind the wall, the plumbing sighs. You drift again, eyes closed, body heavy, the soft echo of water running, now almost peaceful, sliding down through a 1,000-year-old pipe system and into dreams. In the distance, you hear a toddler imitate it perfectly. You chuckle, half asleep. At this point, you're not sure if the pipes moan to wake you up or because they miss you when you sleep. It starts with a bet. Whispers through the courtyard, traded like stolen olives. Tonight's the night. The snore-off's happening. Sobura versus Aventine. You sit up immediately. The great snore-off of Sabura. Half myth, half public nuisance returns every few years when boredom, humidity, and ego collide. It's exactly what it sounds like. A competition to determine the loudest, most obnoxious, most resonant snorer in the neighborhood. And tonight, it's happening right beneath your ceiling. You hear the set-up makeshift mats being dragged into a central unit. Bets murmured. Honey wine sipped for lubrication. A judge is chosen, usually the lightest sleeper. This year, probably Julia. Someone upstairs shouts, "No cheating with spicy lentils this time." Someone below answers, "He eats lentils every night. That's just his brand." You grin, already wide awake. Historians still argue whether these snore-offs were real or just urban legend fueled by late-night theater and too much garum, but fragments of graffiti found near tenement ruins reference names, scores, and something called the Bronze Nose Cup, which may or may not have been an actual trophy shaped like a nostril. Fringe scholars believe such contests were part sleep sport, part magical ritual meant to attract the gods' attention through vibrations of the mortal throat. You suspect it was more about bragging rights and mild revenge. The rules are simple. No artificial enhancers, no snuff, no cursed incense. The snorer must be naturally asleep. The crowd must endure without interruption until sunrise. First one to snore loud enough to wake the pigeons wins. The crowd gathers. The building vibrates. You hear the first contestant, Publius the Potter. Known for his deep chest and deviated septum, his snore starts low, then rises like a chariot cresting a hill. The floor beneath you rumbles. Someone claps. Someone else groans. Next, Gaius the Goat, a wiry man with nasal passages forged in the 9th circle. His style is more erratic, 2 quick huffs. Then a wheeze that sounds like a haunted soup ladle, very artistic. Then comes the favorite, Old Menenius, a veteran of 3 previous snore-offs. His snores have been described as palatial, a blend of thunder, accusation, and distant regret. He's a crowd pleaser. Tonight, he's added props. You hear a clay mask being fitted to amplify the sound, a controversial move, but technically legal. The crowd murmurs, then silence, then the plaster shakes. A toddler starts crying. A pigeon flutters off the roof. Menenius exhales. That's it. Someone yells, "We've got a flapper." You cheer softly into your blanket. It's a masterpiece, a full-body snore, with layered tones and just a hint of emotional trauma, the mark of a true veteran. But wait, someone's stepping up. Lucilla. Yes, her, tiny, wrinkled. A widow known mostly for knitting ominous socks. No one expected her to enter, but she lies down, takes one long breath, and lets loose. It's high-pitched, nasal, piercing. Windows rattle, the oil lamp flickers, your teeth itch. Someone screams, "My ears, my figs." It is magnificent. For 5 full minutes, she sustains it, not once turning, not once choking, just pure, glorious nasal rage. By the end, The judge can't speak. Someone passes out. The ceiling beam. Lucinda creaks in applause. And just like that, Lucilla is declared the winner. A goat-shaped cookie is placed at her side. She does not wake. You lie back down, grinning, heart still humming from the absurdity of it all. This is why you stay in this building. Not for the peace, not for the plumbing, not even for Lucinda. You stay for nights like this. Nights when 100 sleep-deprived strangers come together to celebrate the weird, the ridiculous, the deeply Roman rituals that make the chaos worth it. You close your eyes and dream. Briefly, that you're in the finals. Everyone's cheering. A senator weeps. Jupiter nods in approval. You inhale and wake yourself up snoring. You can't remember why you climbed the ladder. Maybe it was too hot. Maybe the bedbugs declared war again. Maybe Menenius's victory snore is still echoing in your skull. Either way, you're here now on the roof of the insula, wrapped in a blanket that smells faintly of vinegar and dreams. And you're not alone. Turns out, there's a whole society up here. Rome's unofficial roof sleepers. You blink into the night. All across the rooftop, you see the shapes of people, some sprawled out on mats, others curled like figs in a bowl. One guy has constructed what can only be described as a pillow fortress. A woman is softly singing to her loaf of bread. No judgment. We all have coping mechanisms. You exhale, the air is cool. Finally, for once, no pipe moaning. No muffled gossip, no goat cart slamming into amphora stacks, just the hum of night crickets and the occasional cough from 3 rooftops over. This is peace. Well, relative peace. A dog starts barking somewhere on the street below. Someone yells. Your dog dreams louder than you do, then quieter. But give him my love. You smile. Historians still argue whether rooftop sleeping was common practice or a desperate last resort. Some claim it was a summer custom, a way to escape the heat rising from cramped quarters. Others say it was a badge of honor. Only the bold, the bitten, and the truly done with it all dared to scale their own building for sleep. Fringe theory. Some Roman cults worshipped Somnus, the god of sleep. From rooftops, believing the higher you were, the closer your dreams reached the gods. It's not a terrible theory. You do feel closer to something up here, even if it's just better airflow. You lie back, above you. The stars blink lazily. Familiar constellations scribbled across the sky in cosmic shorthand. There's Mercury's crooked sandal, Jupiter's indecisive beard, and, of course, the bedbug nebula just out of reach. Someone nearby is whispering a story. You can't see them, but the voice carries. Once, during the reign of Claudius, a man snored so loudly it woke the emperor's falcon. The bird flew into the palace and refused to leave until the man apologized. The snorer was knighted. The falcon got a laurel wreath. You don't know if it's true. Doesn't matter. It's a good story. A breeze brushes your face, lifting the edge of your blanket like a soft hand. You shift, stretching out across the gritty tiles. Your mat isn't much an old sack stuffed with cloth and wishful thinking. But up here, it feels luxurious. And then you notice it, the roof rituals. One sleeper has aligned 3 pebbles in a perfect triangle around their head. Another has smeared oil at each corner of their mat. Julia. Of course, Julia is drawing something on the tiles with ash. She calls it star math. You don't ask. You realize everyone has their thing up here. Their ritual, their way of convincing themselves that sleep will find them. Even on a roof in a city that never stops talking. Yours, you hum. Just a soft tune. Something your grandmother sang while slicing garlic. A tune with no words, just warmth. It fills the air around you like a blanket thicker than anything you've ever owned. The crickets pause to listen. Or maybe that's your imagination. You wonder what the domus dwellers would think of this if they knew their neighbors were dozing on clay shingles like pigeons in a thunderstorm. They'd probably wrinkle their noses and talk about insulation, but they'd be wrong. Up here, under the open sky, you feel something they never will. A roof that doesn't trap you. It frees you. Because sometimes, peace isn't about silence. It's about space, about knowing you're not the only one who couldn't sleep, who climbed 1 floor higher hoping for a different kind of night. You yawn. Finally, the stars wink once more. You think, tonight, I might actually rest. and then someone sneezes so violently they kick over a jug of water. Chaos resumes, but the stars stay, and so do you. It's the hour just before dawn, the soft, still moment when even Rome seems unsure whether to keep dreaming or wake. You lie on the rooftop, blanket bunched under your head, breath slow, body finally quiet. Around you, the other roof sleepers barely move. A gentle snore here, a shift of cloth there. The city, too, is holding its breath. The chaos has stopped. For now, no shouting, no pipe gurgles, no broom-thumping judgment, just the hush of early morning, thick as bread dough and warm as a half-forgotten memory. Your eyes scan the sky pale blue, almost silver, the stars fading like old ink. Below, the streets are empty except for a cat stretching across a rooftop ledge, tail flicking in regal boredom. This moment feels ancient, not just in years, but in spirit, as if time has stopped to listen to you breathe. Romans called this hour prima lux first light. Poets wrote about it. Bakers blessed it. Lovers feared it. Because prima lux meant reality would soon return. Your dreams had to pack up and go, and with them, the version of yourself that lived in silence, in softness, in the spaces between footsteps. You close your eyes one more time. Historians still argue whether Romans truly valued sleep, or if they saw it as wasted time between work and survival. Scrolls are torn on the subject. Philosophers praised the clarity of early rising. Physicians prescribed midday naps, but ask any tenement dweller and they'll tell you, sleep was the only time the walls didn't watch you. Fringe theory of the morning. Some whispered that dawn was when the gods walked unseen, checking in on the sleepers, not the senators, not the generals, the insomniacs, the roof dwellers, the people who tried their best with vinegar, pipe songs, and whispered dreams. You feel them now, the gods not watching, just listening. Lucinda, your ceiling beam, is far below you now, but you imagine her creak in the wind. Your walls, your floor, your neighbor's still down there. Still noisy, still yours. You feel something tug at your ankle. A breeze, a memory. No, a child, curled beside you. You hadn't noticed him. Curled under a second blanket, arm flung over his forehead like a playwright in rehearsal. His mother probably, Julia, sleeps 2 feet away, her sandals placed neatly as if the gods might inspect them. You turn on your side. The tiles are warm now. Even the wind is gentler, as if it knows you need rest before the day can begin its demands. And so, for the last few minutes of this fragile in-between, you rest. You don't dream. You don't snore. You just exist under a sky that remembers your name in a city that, in spite of everything, made room for you, because this was never a story about architecture or sleep patterns. It was about noise, about how, somehow, through the noise within it, because of it you found a rhythm, a lullaby of city life, uneven and cracked and impossibly human. And now, with one final exhale, you let it go. You let the rooftops fall away. You let Rome, in all her mess, slip gently back into motion, wind down 300 words. And now, as the rooftops fade, so does the weight behind your eyes. You're still there, somewhere, wrapped in a worn cloth under a sky that knows too much. But it's softer now. The edges of the city blur. The footsteps of the fire watch have passed. Even Lucilla's snore has softened into memory. Your body sinks a little deeper. No need to move. No need to chase the dream back. Let the city stretch without you for a while. Let the sunlight climb the walls of the insula, slipping between cracks, brushing the cheeks of a sleeping baker, warming the feet of a mother curled around her child. Let the pigeons rise without fanfare. Let the pipes moan one last time before silence becomes someone else's problem. You've walked through the night and come out whole, not perfect, not polished, just whole. Breathe in, breathe out. If a ceiling beam creaks in your mind, let it. If a rat wearing a toga nods in passing, nod back. Because the day can wait. And here, in this lingering hush, in this tiny Roman rooftop of the imagination, you found what they rarely write down. That even in the loudest city, peace is possible. That even in shared walls and chaos, rest can find you. Now close your eyes, float in the quiet, and sleep like Rome herself is rocking you.